and I was gonna excuse myself
Yeah.
unless Christy feels otherwise.
No, I think that's great. Once we get the,
Will there be any staff here?
No,
No, okay.
just Christy. I know that's not what you meant by staff. Brent will be here. Brent? Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. But that's it.
Yeah, no, I just went.
All is. Thank you. And I believe the first order of business is the. Pledge of allegiance. That is quorum with roll call. Excuse me, yes, roll call and quorum. President Schmidt. Here. Sally Meadows. Here. Lee Hill. Here. Steve Daly. Here. And Artie. Joe Creed. Am I saying that right? Okay. And just as a note, on the recording, Artie is attending remotely, and there's a question as to whether that was properly noticed. So for voting purposes, she would be considered as a meeting attendee and not a voting member. Okay. Now, let's join in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Artie Jory. I'm sure next time we'll get to see her in person. Artie and I had daughters in the same grade. I think they met in middle school, and have been fortunate to know her. We both attended the same Stanford program and graduated from that. So we have many parallel things going on. I'm incredibly excited that Artie is joining the board because I think she'll be a phenomenal addition. So thank you so much, Artie. Maybe if you want to introduce yourselves to Artie. Pete?
My name is Pete Daly. I'm representing, or I'm on the board as a council member for the city of Los Altos.
and so you're not the newest NCLA member anymore. Archie has those honors, so, all right, I'm Sally Meadows. Go ahead, Archie.
No, I said, I'm sorry to be attending remotely, but I'd love to hear your introduction first.
Sally Meadows, Mayor of Los Altos this year, and I've been on NCLA for, I think this was 2.5 years.
I think you and I joined the same time in order like this.
When we were brand new.
Yes.
Hi, Artie. I'm Cindy Hill, and I'm representing the Library Commission. I've been appointed by the commission, and I'm a former member of the Library Commission.
It's great to meet everybody. Sorry about doing this remotely, but I'll be in person right there next time.
Well, we do really appreciate you joining the NCLA, and I know you'll make a tremendous contribution. So, and I was going to thank Suzanne for her work. Yeah. So now she has some beautiful flowers. I thought she was going to be here. But let's go on with the update.
Well, we should, I would like to, even though she's not here, this is recorded. So
Oh,
we
okay,
can
sure,
say,
please do.
you know, appreciate all her years. I don't know how many, but there's no expert in all things library more than Suzanne, except maybe Cindy. But so I know she is dedicated and really added a lot to NCLA. So thank you to Suzanne.
And I'd like to say a few words too. I think that Suzanne not only represented Los Angeles Hills extremely well, but she really took on understanding the finances of NCLA and the city, and worked hard to keep everything straight for us. I might have information about libraries, but not about numbers. So I valued and I value Suzanne's input and insights.
Well, I'm sure we'll still benefit from Suzanne's enthusiasm. I know she's not stopping her work with the library, but yes, she's been really, really dedicated to this cause through some difficult times in the NCLA. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry she doesn't get her pink flowers. Well, I'll hand one out to each one of you.
Kind of in her mailbox.
Okay, now I think we'll move on to update of the outstanding invoices. Do we want to do public comments?
Items not on the-
Oh, sorry, yes. Public comments, I'll get this down eventually. Items not on the agenda. Get this done at first. Okay. Now we're gonna get to those pesky invoices. Christie had put together invoices. They're a little confused in my head because some of them are moving over from 18 months ago or so. And I have a strong desire to get them paid and get on a nice clean slate and get going, particularly Myers Nave.
Yes,
Are really
and
outstanding.
so what I have for you to approve today, the amount that you're going to be approving is everything through the, through 2020. There, or 2022, I'm sorry. There were no services in January and February of this year. There is one question that Suzanne Epstein brought up about some of the March charges. So I'm clarifying those with Myers Nave, and then we'll approve those next month. So we caught up next month.
So we'll do all the way until March of this year. Okay, excellent.
So, can I ask a question about that? It's, switch back there. I wasn't sure, I thought that we had already approved some of these invoices.
Yeah, that is correct, that they had been approved. One batch of them had been approved in August of last year and another batch approved for payment in December of last year. But because there was no administrative officer, those payments were never forwarded to the county for actual payments, which is why they're outstanding right now. So what you are being asked to approve are the current invoice, the invoice amounts. Well, actually with Myers Nave, we don't have to approve any of theirs because the ones that they've been approved through December.
Need to be paid.
Yeah, they just need to be
And then there's Chauvin and also NSB.
shown and NSB and MRG.
And those have not been approved yet. We need to approve them. Any other questions, discussions?
So I'm looking at the agenda that's online and I think I see one invoice. Usually they would all be bunched together. I'm not seeing a table of contents either, so, or maybe there is. So I see an invoice which is paid, the NBS invoice, page 6 of the PDF, and are the other ones?
I did the other page 6.
Yeah. There might be some at
I
the
think,
end.
yeah.
There are current invoices, so the MRG invoice is. The MRG invoice is erroneously on page 37, because it is with the current invoices and not the outstanding invoices. So page 31. 31.
Robert is also at the. And my. All three of them.
So they start at page 31 and they go on to the end or something. All right. Well, I move that we approve.
Excuse me to the president. Apologies for at this moment, the status of outstanding invoices was under informational items. And so the action item would be under the 4th item, approval of current invoices. So I just wanted to clarify if you're moving around the agenda, and if so, just to clarify what actions you're taking, if that is under agenda item number 4.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think we could take them in order when we get there instead of having to move the agenda around.
She addressed them all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll
Yes.
perform on it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ally.
Not a problem.
And then I had suggested we have some time in the agenda to talk about the 420 strategy meeting. Invited people here to talk about that. I don't think there's any particular outcome. I just wanted some time to discuss and see where we are, and hopefully we can start moving forward from that discussion.
You speaking item number 3?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Ally, it was your turn next. Legal discussion of allowable uses of NCLA funds, a report on your memo that you included in the packet.
I apologize, my internet went out. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can now.
Okay, I'm glad I got right back in. I had briefly heard that you are now on to the item that I would be speaking on. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the stick that we came back with. Yes. We're always seems to be having trouble.
Uh-huh.
Frozen.
Is Artie also frozen?
No, Artie is not frozen. Sally,
He was so still.
right? I don't think it's us.
Yeah.
How many of you were at the famous library commission
Oh
meeting?
my gosh.
Oh, the infamous.
Ally, you're back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. I am in the office and I'm not sure why the internet has cut out. Okay, what did you last hear? Where was I? I'm just on my introduction still?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Ally Wolf. I'm from Myers Nave. I work with Claire Lai, the commission attorney, and she could not be here with you this evening, so I will be presenting just briefly on the memo that the authority received from Claire that's dated April 21st, 2023 in the agenda packet. And I am presenting with the understanding that everyone has had an opportunity to review the memo. So my presentation will be brief and I will not have a PowerPoint, but I'm happy to answer questions and carry out the discussion further with the board. So the general question that was posed to the commission attorney was related to continued use of NCLA funds upon expiration of Measure L. And so just overall, the question was whether NCLA would still be able to use remaining funds upon the expiration of Measure L. And so I wanted to give just a brief foundational background for members of the public and members of the board that might not be aware of the sort of technicalities of the Measure L funds. So NCLA was formed through a joint powers agreement between the city of Los Altos and the town of Los Altos Hills, as many of you are well aware. The NCLA was established under a JPA, which was meant to create an agency tasked with specific tasks that are spelled out in the JPA. And in 2010, voters also approved Measure L, which levied a $76 special parcel tax for 20 consecutive fiscal years. The voters approved Measure L as a special tax, and that language is important to answer the question that has been posed to the commission attorney. The special tax granted NCLA the authority to levy a parcel tax for a specific purpose, which is explicitly listed out in the ballot measure language. And just a very brief language that addresses the specific purpose of the tax includes to maintain library hours, to purchase books and materials, to support library programs, And then there's also a fourth general purpose, which establishes that funds may be used for any other expenditure necessary to uphold the level of service, including expenses related to a future election when the parcel tax expires. So Measure L funds may only be used for the specific purposes that I just listed. NCLA also has a requirement to prepare an annual report under the special tax. It is set to expire in fiscal year 2029-2030, which is the 20-year mark from the approval of Measure L. Even after the expiration, however, NCLA may continue to use Measure L funds with the understanding that it may only use Measure L funds as long as the JPA, the Joint Powers Entity, continues to exist, and that the expenditures are consistent with the special tax spending parameters that I have just recently described, and specifically as they are written in the ballot measure language. And so that's my brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the authority may have for me this evening.
We're clear, thank you.
I think the only thing that's a little unclear is amorphous number 4, which is for any other expenditures necessary to uphold the level of service. That seems a little expandable and contractual. That's something to support. But I guess
Yes.
that's where the discussion comes.
Yes, so that specific language is, as you mentioned, a little more expandable. It requires a case-by-case determination of whether the funds or whether the intended spending is indeed for the purpose of maintaining the level of services that have previously been provided. And so our office and the Commission Authority is available to answer specific questions as they may arise related to that language.
That language. My question is really about the word uphold in the text of the initiative, or the, in the text of the ballot measure where we got the parcel tax from. Does that mean that we are limited to maintaining a level of service previously established? Or does that mean that we can spend parcel tax funds to expand the level of service? How is uphold interpreted in that sense?
I don't believe that is specific language that we have looked into. I understand that there have been questions previously related to expenditures for expanding facilities, so building new facilities, and specifically in terms of expanding service. I would actually, the language that I would first go to is, does it fit into maintaining library hours, purchasing books and materials, and supporting library programs? If it's expanding services that don't fit within maintaining library hours or purchasing books and programs or supporting library programs, then the commission attorney should be asked to look specifically into the services that are intended to be expanded in order to just determine on a case-by-case basis. That is a more specific legal analysis that would be required.
So taking it one step further, if the finding was that we can't expand programs, then the question becomes, expand them from what baseline? Because you could use non-parcel tax funds to expand programs and then turn around and say, but we have to use parcel tax funds to maintain the programs that we've established. So anyway, those are the questions that I have about that language, and it does sound like a rather costly attorney discussion.
Well, it sounds like we should maybe get to the point of having some options and then ask for an opinion, or Yeah, I don't know. I know that's what was done before.
Actually, Cindy should go first because you haven't said anything, if you have anything.
Yeah, several years ago, NCLA realized that we were going to have a substantial amount of money, and we worked with the county to increase the hours. And that was to increase the hours to support the library program, because without additional hours, there wasn't enough time to pull any more programs. So it's kind of like, which comes first? So we got the hours, and then they could expand the programs, and now we need to keep the programs at that level. So I just, I want to make that point so people understand that it's not status quo as when we voted that parcel tax in. Things do expand, and then you should keep it at that level, or we have kept it at that level.
So I don't actually remember, which doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I don't remember that we actually asked this question in this way. So it's clear in answering the question, but I don't recall that we asked, this question seems to me to have been, when the parcel tax expires, can NCLA keep the money and continue to use it? And this answers that question and largely says yes, which is good, and that makes sense. But I don't recall that we asked that. I thought we went back to what is the perennial question, which gets actually to the heart of what you were talking about, which is a general purpose something to do with the facility? That's the question. So again, maybe this is the question we ask, and we don't meet every month, and but I didn't see it in the minutes either. So I think this is actually good to know, because timelines are long, and so if we were in the middle of some service or facility or whatever, you wouldn't want the clock to end and then you don't have access to the funds. So this is good, but I'm not sure this is the full question that we asked, but I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember what questions we asked before. I remember seeing an answer to a question that I didn't know the full text of the question. What I hear is that we'll have to know what you want to do with it, and then we can tell you if it's okay.
Right. But I thought the question that we've been wrestling with is now, before it expires, and in the next years before it expires, are we allowed to use it for facility related uses, whatever those might be, to, again, there's an argument being made that we need to restore a level of service for putting a library supportive organization into the library. That's, I think, what we had the question was about. So, the first part of that question in my mind is the Friends of the Library went into the library and took some space. That was agreed by everybody, well, or everybody that I heard from. And then an argument is being made that because the Friends of the Library went in there, that reduced level of services.
No, we lost them.
Yeah, service, connection died.
At least this time it wasn't me. No, we're still being recorded as well.
I'm going to just send her a note,
Okay.
see if she sees it.
Thank you.
I'm sure they'll know.
Mhm.
Were you able to hear?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, we can hear. We just can't see.
This is informational item rather than.
Looks like everyone is back.
Yes. I just read that document today, so I thought it was in the packet.
Why am I beginning here?
I was trying to look for where the MPLA page is, so I can look at the previous, but I do wonder whether this is actually on the agenda as such. We haven't included that in the materials for this meeting, and we're discussing something that was labeled as an informational item, so I don't know if Ms. Wolf wants to comment on how much direction we can give on something that we can't find yet, even that wasn't in the packet, so.
Well, so the question was, or the informational item was fairly general on legal discussion of allowable uses of NCLA funds. I think the questions that have been posed are all generally within that realm, and the authority board wouldn't be proposing to take any action today. So as a Brown Act consideration, I don't see any issue with just having that discussion. And it sounds like there are some questions that were not answered that may have previously been posed, that if the question can be clarified, I can ensure either if I'm able to answer it today, or I can ensure that this is brought back with some additional guidance if you'd like to re-agendize it for the next meeting. And Claire will also be back at that time and may be able to provide some additional insight. So I may have missed the Zoom dropped off in the middle of the discussion. And so I did not hear if there was sort of final decision on what the greater question that the authority board desires to have answered. And it seemed to me like the question was more so related to can NCLA, can the language that quote unquote is maintain the level of service be considered when there is an expansion of service? And I just wanted to clarify so that I make sure I address the correct question.
I think we moved beyond the level of service question to want to address specifically facility-related options and how those may or may not be congruent with the ballot measure. And there has been a case made that certain facility options would maintain or restore a level of service. But I think where we were going in the discussion, and Lisa, please jump in, is that we would give you the facility options that the Library Commission has previously provided, which I don't think any of us have found, or I certainly haven't found tonight, and then would like opinions on each of those 4 hypothetical options as to whether they'd be a consistent use from the ballot measure.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion here before we take some public comment? Or? No. Okay, open it up to public comment. Hi, Pierre.
Hi, so I asked for this to be reviewed again.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I did is because I wanted an expansion of the view of what we could use the funds for. Number one, I reserve the judgment for further comments on this document, given that honestly, I didn't see it till the meeting's already started. But from what I saw of it, what I like that it's brought us, or has brought the NCLA, is an opening under general purposes. I don't think that you need to decide anything, and I don't think that you should spend more money to decide something that you don't know whether you're going to do or not. The issue here that's been addressed is that the monies can be used for, it's not as narrow a purpose as was brought out in the first opinion by Claire. And it's a lot more succinct. So anyway, that's my public opinion.
Yeah, I guess so. So I did pull up the previous legal opinion and compared it with the most recent one. And the most recent one, frankly, seems to be a regurgitation of the previous, at least the discussion in the background. And the only thing that seems to be much different is, I think it's at the bottom of page 2, which answers a very specific question, which is about the use of the funds after the expiration. I too was hoping for something to more specific with regard to the use of the funds. I am also looking at the document that we provided and it may be helpful just to, I'm aware, to instead of giving this document, which is, has a lot of information in it, asking very specific, narrowly tailored questions so that you get answers to those. Because it seems like that's what we're getting answers to specific questions, and that might be helpful.
So the document that you guys presented in March, going with that document and getting an opinion on that, is that what you're?
Well, I think you should probably ask more specific questions
Than even in that.
and just not giving a document and saying, what do you think, but saying specifically, can the funds be used for X? Can the funds be used for X?
I would even say that the question should be phrased such as, under what circumstances can we use these funds for X? Not, can they be used for X?
Yeah.
I think I found the document, but the options are not all building options. They're options about the parcel tax, and this might be a different thing. Stop collecting the parcel tax. Those are options for NCLA. Use the excess fund to extend hours. We know that's within the remit. There was really option 4 of these 4 options. Continue to collect the parcel tax. And option 4 was use excess funds to restore space and services to the main library. So what I think we really need to do is flesh out options within the facility question and do what you just said. Throw the bond measure against each of those scenarios and see what they say fits.
So I guess one of the questions I have is who.
If I could just clarify, what we did is in that document, we listed what the NCLA considered on January 30th. And then we said, however, we think that there are other opportunities and we listed those.
Right. I think we're all actually saying the same thing,
Yeah.
just saying it in very different
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Was this the document that had expand children's?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I found that one too. Well, yeah. The thing that occurs to me is, I've heard some discussion that the NCLA is only peripherally involved in the decision of how this money is used, and that it's the community that needs to provide deeper input. And for example, the Library Commission and Friends of the Library, et cetera, those are the entities that are going to provide that input. Is that what everybody else hears? Or again, I'm a newbie, so I don't know of that too. I feel a little like we as the NCLA can't decide what this money is going to use because it's a much bigger community discussion than we could. We just need to make sure it's legal.
Well, I think that's why we present multiple options. So if the options are to, make minor changes to the building, renovate interior, expand the footprint, build a new library, then which of those hypotheticals, and I'm suggesting we should spend more time defining those hypotheticals, but not in great depth, and have the question, can NCLA funds be used and in which situation for option renovate, for option modernize and renovate, for option, whatever the options are. And because we're asking the question, can we use our money for that? The that's should come from the library ecosystem. But then NCLA needs to ask the question because we have very legal guidelines around how we can spend our money. Okay, yeah, that's how I see it.
And I think combined with that, we need to look at ensuring that we can go out to 2030 with providing the funding to the county if needed. So right now, we're flush with cash, but I think in partnership, we should take a worst case scenario of, let's say all of a sudden the state stops giving the ERAP funding. I want to make sure I have the acronym correctly, and that the county has to come back to us and say, now it's time for you to use your parcel tax to maintain the level of services we've been funding. So, and I bring that up because years ago, when I was observing NCLA, we would get about once a year, we would get this amazing chart that showed here's the income coming in and here's what we're spending. here's your high point where we have the most income, and then it starts to drop down because we're spending and then more money is coming in. So I would like to figure out how we ensure that if we get the green light to spend and we go up with a spending idea, that we're not spending down to the dollar and we run out of money at 2030, before 2030. Because that's what the parcel tax says, you have to cover to them.
Yeah, so that's another layer on it, which is, okay, if these options are supported, then how does that fit in with our forecast?
Correct.
It's essentially a forecast. I don't know who makes that forecast. I don't know that we can make that forecast. Would the county make such a forecast? Okay, what is it, Liz? No, you can tell us next time. We'll put you on the next agenda. Right.
Well, it seems like the ERAC funds are the big unknown and nobody has much visibility into that. Does Chuck just stick his finger in the air and see which way? they go?
The state and the county budget are facing deficits that they didn't anticipate a year ago. So the only thing that's fair to assume is that the possibility of cuts exist.
I mean, and a conservative approach could be if some of those facility options or all of those facility options are supported legally, we could still advise that we wouldn't commit any funds until the end of the parcel tax, and then, you know, any excess would go towards that. Of course, that's not a very satisfying answer, because that's like 2029. Yeah. So that's not, that is, but we have to do a risk. I think that's a really good point Cindy brought up. We have to understand the risk. Yeah.
And so these other groups that also have got money for expanding the library, how do we sequence that into the discussion?
Well, they have it a lot easier. They can just decide to give the money.
Absolutely, but it also affects how much can be done.
Well, yes, but we're not gonna wait for options to be fleshed out. I think we're gonna give them hypotheticals, and then that way it helps. It is a little bit which comes first, because, you know. But I think we need to answer, if we can't do anything facility-wise, which I'm not thinking is the answer, but if that were to be the answer, then we're out of the conversation anyway.
So it sounds to me like we put together more detail, less perhaps than was presented in this memo from March. We send it off to Myers-Nay, get yes or no, and then we can start bringing other groups into the conversation. Is that?
Well, then we report out what we learned.
And then we're gonna, yeah, through all the things we have to do in order, but I think if I said before, I don't have a strong opinion what needs to be done, but I really don't want us to put on money and not use it for the libraries. That's my biggest deal. So there's nothing we can pass here. Somebody make a noise over there. But I guess one thing that I suggested towards the end of the potential future agenda items, we can come to that later. How do we move forward on making this happen?
Okay, so I have a suggestion. Why don't we propose to give the Library Commission an action item to verbalize, or put in text brief, not, we don't want architectural plans, what the facility, the least amount of facility work to the, all the way through brand new library. I think there's 4 or 5 options that we had discussed. And you have those. I don't remember them, even though you tell me I said them. So, and then with that, we can give better direction, I think, and maybe we don't even need to wait to the next, well, maybe we do. We want to look at that and give direction and then layer on, and see whether it makes sense to layer on the risk piece too. But I think the first action item is to get those facility options.
And would that be possible to present at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And then after we review those and vote on those, we would hand them to Myers-Nay for opinion, and then we can start working with other groups.
Yeah. To define, we look at those, define the question to make sure that the work that Ally and Claire do is on the question you know, the full question. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yes, yeah, I think that would be helpful if we're talking about specific facility work. And there may be beyond, when in the next agendized meeting, when you do present or decide on the specific questions, Claire will likely have more questions. So I would just be prepared for that if possible, in terms of the need for the facilities. And that type of, those types of facts will be helpful in the legal analysis that's conducted to determine whether it would fall under the special tax.
And we would rely on Rose and Jennifer to help us with those things, and how would services impacted, support. You guys know those answers.
So hypothetically, I just want to ask a question for my own benefit. You can cut me off if you don't find it adding to the conversation. So if you looked at the library now, the no change, and you looked at a Nolan Tan interior modernization and renovation, is there an increase in level of service for doing something like that? Say the square footage remains the same, the library is modernized.
So I'm going to add to that. Can I just add to that? I had the same question. What do you define as uphold services? Because 20 years, a lot evolves. So when we're talking about upholding services, are they, state of the art, modern? So I think that's a very good question.
So computers, nooks, spaces, spaces, well, like the station space, and you can imagine if you had a little mini amphitheater. You wouldn't do that, but whatever. So you can improve, increase and improve level of service with no square footage addition potentially, but interior renovation, modernization. That's what's known as a leading question. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Julie might have pointed that out to you.
Okay, all right, so so is everyone?
Well, what I hear what we're asking is, Julie and Pierre to come back with, a presentation with a list of options that we can discuss and we agree upon. We'll send to Myers-May for, opinion. And then they'll bring back an opinion and we can, from there, look for the next step on how we engage with
And then,
broader community.
how do we work in the library's point of view? So, the commission has one, the other groups have others, but, the library is the primary, service provider.
Right, well, that's what they're involved in working with the options to identify the services.
So those should be working with the library commission.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Julie, they can walk with them by they want, just come back with the list,
And it wouldn't have to be a presentation, but just a succinct document fleshing out whatever. Yeah.
no crazy.
From a process standpoint, that, if that comes back to us, we need to convene to review it and then push it along to the attorneys.
I would think that would be better. I think the more public input we have, and it's carefully documented, the better we are. Because I think the whole process has been hazy for a while. I certainly haven't understood it.
And in addition to the options that that we get back, that we send to the attorney, I want to have a more fulsome discussion over what uphold means and whether or not it means uphold the services that a state-of-the-art contemporary library should have based on today's standards, or if it means uphold the services that were established as a baseline when the parcel tax was passed, or if it means some other historical baseline that we've established through precedent leading up to this point. And I would ask the attorneys in that way.
Yeah, I think that's very clear. I think that'll be helpful to hear at the next meeting what the list is as well.
And then we will, in theory, be able to take that, give it to the attorneys, and then that should answer. And then we need to figure out where the risk piece, the forecast piece fits in. I don't think that goes to the attorneys. I think that's a separate exercise.
Sorry, yeah, I
Yeah.
think Josh Griffin, or I think he should give you guys some kind of hard figures as to the what ifs and or at least is on our JPA. And so we are forecasting 5 years out, and again, what that looks like in terms of, you know, making sure that you have that safety net to ensure that you have the hours that you need.
Right.
Okay, like I said, I don't think there's anything we're voting on here.
Yes.
Just direction.
And, thank you, I feel very good about that. I appreciate it. Now we'll go over the budget review. Consideration adoption. And investment.
Well, now we want the report on the strategy.
Oh, I helped write the agenda.
We've lost them again.
They must see this right away. So I'm assuming someone's working, but I've sent something on chat and
I messaged Christy as well.
Presentations or with, okay.
Well, maybe Julie could go first.
Okay.
It's for me.
Right, and she probably has
The library
time for something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not sure. So yeah, thank you. We had a special services, a special meeting. And I want to say I got the idea from Pierre because we had apparently before I came on the commission, a previous special meeting where all of the different groups gathered together to discuss what they were working on and their goals for that year. I was very pleased that 4 of the 5 council members attended and stayed largely throughout. We had members of all of the various groups. The county was there, and it began. We began with that Nolan Tam. Really talked about the future of the library, and it was interesting because halfway through, one of my fellow commissioners went over and said, "Everybody has a better library than we do." And so I hadn't been presented with what they were going to share before, so they did talk at length, and then each of the groups came up and I believe provided information with regard to the issues that they had been working on. We decided, given the time, I talked to Melvin, the commission didn't get to present, which was fine because we really wanted it to be a forum for people to discover what was going on. Afterwards, the discussions that I was privy to, I think were very interesting, very engaged. People were very appreciative of the opportunity to discuss, or at least to come together and to discuss in this way. Then basically that was the end of that day. I think the Futures Committee, which is Nelson G. Pierre and myself, are going to sit down and flesh out a little bit more from Nolan Tam, because I was surprised at some of the costs that they reported with respect to renovations, which seemed, not as significant as I thought they would be. But to flesh out just sort of generally what things cost and come to, again, put together this idea of these, groupings of, everything from, a full new library to a minor renovation, and bring that to the council to ask the council for their direction, if they have any. So that's kind of where we stand now.
One of the pieces that left me sort of puzzled is that we really don't have any idea what the existing structure can support. And I've been told by people who know more about it than I do that our library is old enough that we're severely limited on what kind of remodeling we can do because the structure itself isn't necessarily going to support the kinds of remodeling that one might do with a building that isn't already at its structural limits in terms of what it can support. So that'd be an issue needs to factor in there. I mean, we can talk about remodeling projects, but if the building won't work to be remodeled, then we shouldn't be chasing that.
Well, so I'd like to respond. In 2017, NCLA set up a library redevelopment task force. And that task force was comprised of 11 to 14 community members. The Friends of the Library Commission, NCLA, and Lolly were all represented. Plus, we had representatives that were not involved in any of the library groups. And one of the studies that we commissioned was to have a structural engineer look at the building. And you are correct. The structural engineer said we could not go out because it was never designed to carry the weight. So it would have to be structurally changed. Then he also took a look at remodeling a section of it. And he said it's cheaper to do a tear down because the current building has to be brought up to code. And it's a significant amount of code changes are required for that building. So he gave us a cost comparison. Those documents still exist, of course, because they were public documents. And the same way, we also had a consulting firm that works with libraries take a look. They did an assessment, and they updated the 2011, 2010, 28, I think, the assessment. And that meant they got public input, library input, commission and other interested parties, staff input, of what would be a functional library for you. And then we also did a public survey using a survey firm. And it was pretty interesting that one of the first things that came out was safety. Are the children safe? Is the building safe? Earthquake, all those different things. And so a lot of that work has been done. So it was done in 2018, 2019. So it's not very early.
Be good to marry some of that work for the library commission and whomever else is forming options.
Correct, and they have the documents. Yeah.
Just so long as they don't come back and say, let's do a retrofit, but we find, but it's incompatible with the structural.
But we're not answering the question about which option we're gonna do. We're asking the question about which options are legal within the bond measure.
Through
Right.
the president, I would just like to ask that, it sounds like this discussion has gone beyond what was listed in the informational items. And so if this is a discussion that the board would like to have, I would suggest agendizing it for a future meeting so that you could go into more detail on those discussions.
Some of the other observations I took away from that meeting was that there was a lot of interest and enthusiasm and curiosity about what a library does for the community. And we have 2 libraries here in Los Altos. We are the only city that does have 2 libraries. So I remember Woodland, it's a vibrant place. And there were, in addition to all the people Julie mentioned that were there, we had private residents that came to the meeting, so it was noticed and it was noticed. I think that the folks from Lale, the Los Altos Library Endowment, came away with some ideas on possible future funding opportunities that might be coming forward.
I think I would add to the discussion, I sense a level of frustration because it sounds like this process has begun a couple of times. And I think the thing that worries me the most is that we begin the process and it kind of stalls again. And I don't know how to avoid, but you gotta move forward. So that would,
Unfortunately, it's the nature of government.
yes.
I mean, this community center, how many times, so.
So we'll do our best to make it happen again. So that was, I think, the biggest thing that I felt out of it. Okay, do we want to add any more to the strategy discussion? Do we feel like we've done that one? Now let's see if I can follow my agenda and items for consideration and action. The budget was included in the package. There was a series of documents. We need to adopt the budget, the levy resolution, and the GAN limit resolution. Any comments, discussion from the board? Commission?
I did have, let me see, sorry.
No problem.
No. Do you know what I'm trying to see? Thank you. Thank you very much. So I did have a question about, I wrote it on a different piece of paper. Now that I found it, but around the 2023-2024 budget, it shows the tax revenue actual as being 1.271 million, which is actually a high number relative to the other numbers, which haven't been changing. So I just wondered why that increase.
those figures were taken from the county fund report. And so that is also included on the because prior pay. So on page 17 of the packet, on the county fund report, you see the two entries for 635, 848, 78 as being the assessment deposits. And that's where that number came from.
So I'm not seeing that. So the 1.271 million came from somewhere on page
On
17.
17, if you look towards the bottom, there are two entries in the amount of $635,848.78. Those
Yeah.
are two deposits. And from assessments, and those two figures added together is where we get the budget figure. The 1.271.
Yeah, so I see that. I still don't believe that connection is what, because our tax revenue, as you can see, it's very stable because the number of parcels doesn't change that much and the assessment is $76 a parcel. So, and if you look at the increase on the number of parcels, which is another document in the packet somewhere, you'll see that we actually lost 2 parcels this year, or maybe that was the previous year, but then we gained 2. So that number doesn't make any sense to me. I don't believe it to be correct.
And go back to the county and ask them for an explanation of those deposit items.
I think, so a deposit item can be from more than one source. It's not necessarily all from the tax revenue, but the tax revenue is a very defined number.
Yeah.
So that does not feel correct to me.
It shouldn't vary by more than a couple $100
Yeah,
in a given
right.
year.
Exactly. Does the deposit number make include the interest as well? Well, that's a separate line item. But I think from this, the original document. I think there's something.
There's some kind of a typo or a data entry issue.
Or these numbers from the balances in the county are not the full story. There's other, so.
If it were comprised of more than 2 deposits, then you might be able to say, okay, well, it's actually pulling in a deposit from a forward period, and then the forward period would have one less and would offset. But with 2 deposits a year at 600K plus for this given year, there's just some other explanation for what is basically a 20% discrepancy in tax revenue.
I mean, we should receive some, I would think, though I don't know, I don't recall, Cindy, you've been longer with NCLA, we should receive some sort of reporting specific to the tax revenue that's separate from this statement of deposits made and withdrawals. So I don't believe this can be correct, so I can't. So I don't think we can adopt it.
I mean, we table it until we can get a clarification on that number.
The second?
Second.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we vote on.
We don't have to do roll call, do we?
No, because RT is not voting, so
We all agree.
we'll table.
Okay.
I think we probably need to make sure Christie gets to the right person. I'm not sure who that is or what, because I don't think this document it would be helpful for maybe a balance sheet or whatever, but I don't think it's answering the question of what our tax revenues were.
I assume Suzanne knows who that person is, or I don't know how we uncover where to get it, but I will leave that up to Chrissy. Okay.
All right.
Next, we have the resolution for setting the special tax rate. That's on page 21.
And,
No, the GAN one is the next one. This is.
oh, this is still the rate for this year. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. I move that, oh, wait, you probably need to ask for public
Public
comment.
comments, that's sorry.
Okay.
They're not knocking down a wall, so. Yeah, I must admit that, if we don't figure out how to use this, we're gonna have a harder time approving it. Since we're moving forward, I feel pretty good, but we need to figure out how to use it. But anyway.
And I think we can flesh out the questions with the options and some of the.
Absolutely.
things.
I'm moving forward on faith there, so,
Yes,
which is fine.
okay. So would you like a motion
Yes,
to, okay, I move that we approve the resolution of the NCLA setting a special tax rate for library services for 2023-24. Second.
Okay. Shall we take a vote? Yep, everybody's happy with that one. And then the GAN limit resolution. You guys have more knowledge and experience in that, but it looks like we're pretty far off, so it looks like it would be
It should be,
no issue.
yeah, I don't see an issue. It doesn't until you get to like 90% of it.
Yeah.
We're nowhere close.
Okay,
Let me find that. I will move that we adopt, the NCLA adopts the resolution setting the FY 23-24 appropriations limit.
A second.
and all in favor? Okey-doke.
Really nice getting these done on time.
On time, yes.
And I really appreciate Christy bringing us up to speed. This has been a tremendous help.
And actually, can I point out that we didn't talk about A, which is the annual report and,
And the investment fund statements, yes.
yeah, and the investment fund statement. So if I can take us back to A, and it's just a minor typo on page 14 of the PDF. It says the requirements of the acts apply to the funds for the following, and it says it's in the middle of that page, kind of, and it says North County Library Association. It's actually the authority. Yeah,
Okay,
because that could be a problem.
it could be, and I would not have commented. Ever.
Okay. And then B, I didn't have any comments on B, but maybe somebody else, but. Do we have to, actually, this might be a question for the attorney. There's no resolution for the report. Do you need a motion to accept it?
You could motion to accept the report if you don't have any concerns. It could also just be a general report out to the authority board. The annual report itself, I would actually recommend a motion to approve it and receive it. There was no discussion on it, so I would also just recommend asking if there is any public comment and ensuring the public has an opportunity to speak, although I understand there's no one on Zoom and I don't believe there's anyone present in the room.
There's 4 people present.
There are people.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
I do have a comment while we're on, in addition to the typo, you'll actually see the total levy. This does list the levy amounts, and you'll see that it says it's
1062.
yeah, and actually, those are not all in agreement with what we see in the budget document, because there is a little bit more variation. If you look at the years where it talks about the total levy amount, you'll see the variation in parcels. Actually, my memory is correct. It was 2 plus or minus either way those years. So what you need, Christy, is the levy amount, which is reported in this. So NDS is probably the source to help you understand that, because they're reporting out year over year, the levy amount and the change in parcels.
Yeah, because I think it was 105.1 was the,
Yeah.
yeah. it was-
Yeah.
Good point.
So that whole line in the previous item we were talking about, which was adopt the annual budget, this actually looks to me to be more accurate.
Does this account for seniors that apply for?
It's up there, yeah, so you can see which parcels right above that, which parcels are exempted,
Oh, okay.
seniors and all that stuff.
That's 273.
That, it's only detailing 2022, 23, but it takes it into account. But this is, to me, a lot more definitive than what we looked at for the budget, so that's problematic for the budget.
We would hope that you would get the same thing from the county when you ask them.
So,
Okay, do we want to accept it as Ally suggested or with the typo?
I move that we accept the report pending the change to the typo on association. I move that we accept the report with the change.
It's authority. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So I guess the motion is, I move we accept the report.
Pending the change with the amendment of changing association to authority.
All in favor? Great, thank you. And the investment fund statement. And I don't know where that one is in the packet.
It's a really fine print one.
page 17, I think.
Yeah. So that's why I think,
see, yes, okay, yeah.
so it's a statement of the investment fund, which is not the same thing as the tax levies we just saw.
Okay.
Anything in that fine of print must be right.
Well, there we go.
I'm being facetious. So we, I move, well, I don't know if there's any public comment on the investment report. Yeah, I move we accept the investment report if we need to have a motion.
I think Ally suggested we.
Yes.
go ahead and get it. Okay.
Yes, I would suggest that as well.
Okay,
Yeah, second.
all in favor? Okay. Shall we move on to minutes here? I did not have any changes to the minutes.
I think I did, but
Okay.
I'm looking for them, okay. On the regular meeting of January 30th, page 3 of the minutes, which is page 26 of the PDF,
Mhm.
I believe the public speaker was not Pete Daly. That was actually
Here.
Say what you said.
It said following members spoke.
Following members of the public spoke, it wasn't Pete Daly.
You're not a member of the public, maybe.
Bedard,
BEDARD.
It was repeat.
What?
It was repeat. Repeat and repeat.
Oh, that's maybe why it happened. Oh, Pierre, well, anyway,
Yeah.
that's fine. And,
Not sure we followed this.
Really?
I read these and I didn't see it.
yeah, and then on, do we want to take one set of minutes at a time?
Okay, would that change?
That's all I saw.
Okay, a motion to approve with the change? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Move to the next minutes.
Okay. You have something on this?
You win the prize.
I win the Eagle Eye Prize for the night.
A long shot so far.
So page 2 of the minutes, probably force of habit. Page 2, page 29. I'm listed as vice mayor, sort of in the middle,
Oh, yes.
under number 3, right before the votes. Vice Mayor Meadows, which is probably what the Angels is actually Vice President Meadows in this context.
Yet another good eagle eye.
I have
You're
another-
both of those things.
I have another potential change, and this is as much of a question as it is a suggested change, but in the first page of the minutes, which is 28 in our packet, under establishing quorum, we're listed as commissioners, and it's a JPA board, not a commission. And I think that's the wrong terminology to use for us. Otherwise, it could be confused with the library commission.
We've been commissioners for.
Is that what it is?
historically.
Okay, all right, well, that answers my question.
Yeah.
As long as that's consistent with the way it's been done.
Everyone else also fills as a committee member, so you're like, yeah, we don't call anybody commissioner without the Hill, so just to be equally confusing. So with the change to Vice President Meadows from Vice Mayor Meadows, we accept the minutes. Is there a motion? So moved. Okay, all in favor? Okey doke. And then the outstanding invoice for MRG, I believe we're.
Which page, is that what we were talking about earlier?
I believe that's page 31, yeah. That is for bringing us up to speed here. And so we have some agenda minutes and all these other good things.
Actually, just to clarify that 31 is the invoice from 2021. Okay,
So you mean 30,
pardon, is it 30? Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry.
page 31? Starting on page 31, it's, the other dates are 3/13/22. So this is the old, very old one, okay.
Well, it says July 22nd, 21, but wasn't this the one that we talked about earlier and we've already approved it?
Yeah, that was, I'm sorry, just if I could clarify, that was Myers Nave that you had approved previously. This MRG invoice had never been brought to the board before.
It was, yeah, so
I looked back through all of your old minutes and I could not find any place where it had been either brought to the board or approved.
this was when Marshall was providing it, right? Marching. Well, there were a bunch of unpaid invoices hanging around in there, so.
Well, there were, but we went through and we approved all those invoices unless somehow this one was missed.
I know we never paid them because I never ended up as vice president signing anything. And I think I was supposed to. That's okay.
distracted by that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So the 2022 invoice,
What page are you looking at?
page 31.
Okay, so that one.
That one, Christie, if we could ask you to check with Gabe, because that one should be paid by Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. And it's unclear where the invoice is in that one.
And whether they, Peter and Dave both need to look to see whether they received it in the first place, and if we did or didn't.
Right.
I'm sure we didn't pay it if MRG is asking for it again, except that the issue date on this and due date is 2022. So do we even know they didn't get paid? Because
They
they
have
should
not
be.
been paid, I can tell you. Just to give you the background on what I was told about this whole thing. Originally, there was a single invoice that was sent for the entire calendar year of 2022. And it was sent to Los Altos. Los Altos said that the agreement was that for fiscal year 21-22, they were responsible. So MRG took the invoice that was the calendar year, divided it into two separate invoices. And so the city of Los Altos paid the invoice that was for the part residing in 21-22. And then what you see in the packet as outstanding is the July through December portion of 2022. And what was explained to me, and I do not know if that's correct, but it was explained to me that NCLA is supposed to pay that, and that it is the responsibility of NCLA. It falls into some certain bills come to NCLA and they're paid, and certain ones are paid by NCLA, but then the legal, the audit, and the NBS are then split, and the city and the town pay their share from the share bills, but then the MRG bill does not fall under that same treatment, was my understanding.
So this one is the one that fell out of the 21-22 budget, and then Marcy.
Well, and we can see that because it
Yeah.
starts in July,
Yeah.
so that's why it starts in July.
Yeah.
And goes, so it's a half year of the 21-22. And you're saying this is NCLA?
That's what I've been told, that it was that the city of Los Altos paid their portion, and that this is the portion that they are saying is not their responsibility.
So then, if that's the understanding, and you're asking us to pay, then if we're comfortable with that NCLA due diligence, and then we can just approve it. It doesn't need to go,
Okay.
Gabe doesn't need to be involved, as
Okay.
long as that's the understanding. So with that understanding, I will make a motion that we approve the invoice for the second half of 21-22 from MRG for payment from NCLA.
Second.
Okay. Okay. You jumped the gun. All in favor? Okay. Now we're approving invoices for payment, and these are the ones we approved last time, accepted the invoices for.
These are the current invoices.
Right. Okay.
Oh, hallelujah.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Well, we want to bring it up to
Okay.
current times in our payments. And Suzanne had an issue with the Myers name. And do you know which?
So there was an item on the current invoice, which.
34 probably.
Thank you.
Was that the thing? Was it?
Yeah, page 34, but
Page 34.
Peter asked a question about who could be appointed, is what I understood it meant.
Correct, and it's actually not on this one, it's on it falls under the invoice that was earlier.
That was done by itself?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so what page on that? That's a 5-page endpoint.
So, there's only one page where they individually list the dates and items. On that page, there is an item on March 15th and an item on March 20th. Those are the ones that Suzanne has issue with because they pertain to the appointment of the Los Altos Hills representative.
I don't see.
Yeah, I don't see one there, but.
In the corrected invoice doesn't start till April, or the second, I should say, the second invoice that we received separately it's still a May 3rd, 2023 invoice. But it doesn't show any March, so maybe this is a corrected invoice based on Suzanne's.
No, we haven't received. Well, I'm just go back in that.
I don't know where she saw an invoice that wasn't in this packet.
No, actually, the one that was sent individually seems to be the same. So now I'm thoroughly confused. I don't see anything on March. So we don't have her here. She's not on the authority at this point. I don't see anything from March. I'm inclined to approve.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the May 3rd invoice from Myers Nave. I move we approve.
All in favor?
Davin and Associates.
I think that one, I mean, they've turned.
Well, that's the audit, yes, I mean, yes, so
So I think that one's pretty controversial.
I move that we approve the invoice from Shavin and Associates.
We just want to need to get them all.
Right.
You're adding 1,000 for the promotions. All in favor? Okay, and MRG, and this is this year. This is
It's
in April.
starting in April, okay. All right, and I move that we approve the MRG invoice dated April, billing through April 30th, 2023.
Second, I'll second it myself. All in favor? Excellent. Right. Are there any reports and comments? I think we've had plenty of comments. I don't know if there's this right. We don't have any ad hoc committees to report out on, so I don't feel. And I added this item as potential future agenda items, but I think we've discussed its purpose at the beginning, so I don't feel like we can discuss it any longer unless anybody else does.
I think we actually had a good.
I think we did too. I was very happy with the outcome. I think everybody feels included and we're moving in the right direction. Which is always what we want. So with no more public comments, I think we'll call the meeting. Oh, wait, one more up here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was reviewing the letter that the Services Subcommittee prepared. And just to put clarification, we asked, or we respectfully requested that the NCLA seek a revised opinion to determine whether the funds could be spent as outlined below, which is more in line with the augmentation of the public library services for the benefit of the inhabitants. So the idea was really to get a general ruling that supports events, not really to get completely specific, but I wanted to, on rereading this letter, I wanted to bring that.
Right, okay. Well, you can, Julie and the little unofficial subcommittee here can incorporate that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Any other public comments? Any addition? Thank you, everyone. Oh, yes. I really feel strongly we ought to set times and cancel and not wholly for everybody to get time. Does this time work? Do we want to meet next month? Do we want to wait a month?
Yeah, I don't think we, so. All right, so the time, I look back, so we were meeting at 5, but maybe we don't. That was because one member had a conflict. She needed another meeting that started at 7, I think. So maybe we can start at 5:30, though 5 is possible. I don't particularly care for this is the, which Tuesday? This is the 4th Monday. So I'd like to avoid the 2nd and 4th Mondays because we have 2nd and 4th Tuesday council meeting. Okay, yeah. And so I'd rather, and I don't know what Your
On
council meeting,
Thursday, council meeting, so
so Monday's far enough.
Monday's fine with me. So yes, we are the third week and
Okay.
it's far enough away. I
So
don't.
mainly, and I think that might be why, did we do first Mondays then?
First Monday, second?
Yeah.
I don't know that we'd want to do first Monday in June because.
No, because we just did it. And then July, yeah.
Time to do their homework over there.
To the president, I just wanted to confirm, I haven't had a chance to look at this yet. I'm not sure if Claire already did, or perhaps someone already reviewed any of the bylaws to see if there was already a established time. If that was already done, then I don't have any particular concerns about changing the time in this meeting. I would, however, for the benefit of the public, because the item on the agenda was not clear to change the time or to set a specific time of the meeting, I might recommend to the president to ask if this could be agendized as for the next meeting to set a specific time, just so it's clear on the agenda what the public can come to speak on.
So we could pick the time for the next meeting and at the next meeting, agendize for the rest of the year.
And I also want to remind people that our bylaws say that we only need to meet twice a year. So the more meetings we add, it's, they're actually special meetings.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't support putting monthly meetings in for just that reason, so.
Do we want to do it each time we meet? I don't think we can wait another 5 months.
Oh, no, I'm saying special meetings.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, but I don't, no matter what we do, we're not gonna have monthly meetings or necessarily even bi-monthly, though we do want to get this item back to us so we can take it. So we're not gonna do the first beginning of June, so what about, July 3rd is not good, that's a holiday weekend, so,
July 10th doesn't work well for you? Because
doesn't,
the 11th is your.
yeah, we have a council, wait, yes, that's right before our, but that's our last meeting before our break.
And July 17th would be fine with me. And 5:30, you want.
Yeah, we're on break then, so that's,
Sorry, what date are we talking about?
We're still kind of discussing. I suggested July 17th, but I think Los Altos is out at that point. Is that correct? We're not having.
we are out by then. What about, June
You would go back to
26th, which is. I don't know if this would give the library commission, so that's a month from now,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So we can do June 26th and we can schedule. a couple more.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't even have our council meeting. We are not having a council meeting in July, so not that makes much
Oh,
sense.
but then that's right in front of our council meeting again, we have a 27th, but we could do it this one time potentially.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that we're gonna be dealing with is just
Just this one.
reviewing this item to forward to the attorneys for their.
Minutes and that should be the only thing, because hopefully we paid everything we're supposed to pay. Except
We'll have the
for-
line from
We've
it.
also asked the county to give us a forecast.
Yes.
And
Okay.
So June 26th, do we want to stick with 5:30 or would we move it to 5?
5 is fine with me.
I don't think
5 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
5 o'clock already on June
26th?
That works.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mondays, I think, have historically been good.
Yeah.
And then we'll move it away from our council meeting after that, but it would be too long in between with the break, so, because we have.
Yeah, but the only thing I did not like was trying to pick one by doodle every time. Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah. Okay, and so this time I'll put it on my calendar. Thank you for being flexible about that last meeting. And maybe we'll, if you get a meeting invite to us, then we can that'll hold it.
Then we'll all pay stuff on it.
and we can share it with our colleagues that'd like to come to these meetings.
Absolutely.
Or have to come to these meetings.
Because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. Okay,
Well, thank you, everyone, Ally and Artie for joining us. Thank you, Library Commission. Thank you, library, wonderful people. Thank you, Kristen, for getting us all in order. We got more done this meeting than a very long time, you know, it's very nice. I'm gonna give.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. But also, no, it's belonging you to the bigger big. That's really what I'm thinking, not 50%, we're all in the
I know I have an office, but we're even here, so the point meeting is until the end of June. So this is the signature card for the next fiscal year.
does you need president and? Oh, all of them, oh, okay, you'll have to get a marquee, so I'll leave top line for Lisa.
The teacher autograph.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just.
Okay, good. They require blue. It's Garrison B.
What about the size of the population?
You know, I think. Unreasonable.
Well, that's why.
Yeah, but my brain today. Yeah.
So, committee.
Then I also have a signature.
Yeah,
card.
let me.
And then we right on the hills. Yes.
The state requirement is actually.
Yeah.
Biases in favor of public notice compared to other states. Utah, for example.
That's fine. We're excessive. We've been excessive.
I asked for a reading of a specific.
Oh, that's a different thing. Okay, I'll let
This is
you
one
know.
of the card. This is basically an event that we have to,
Yes.
you know, change.
There's no non-consent.
Yes.
Order in which the interview.
Well, I left it for.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Okay.
The JPA's purpose is for the augmentation of blah, blah, blah for the inhabitants. That's it.
Do it the long. God, man, you can't say you do it beyond, but it can how it's been beyond the.
Oh.
It doesn't. The opinion is that it doesn't, and that it's true. No, I mean, that's the opinion we want. For God's sake.